Welcome back to Know My Go channel. Today is February 26th, 2026, and the AI world is on fire. From governments leaning hard on AI companies to your phone literally running mini agents that can order you food to open source projects that give AI full control of your computer. Let's break down what's happening, what it means, and why this week feels like a turning point for AI power and AI control. Story number one. Anthropic, the company behind Claude, is in the middle of a serious showdown with the Pentagon. This news comes from Engadget Tech News, published February 25th, 2026, and from Ars Technica AI, also on February 25th, 2026. Here's the situation. According to reporting from Engadget and Ars Technica, US Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth has told Anthropic CEO Dario Amodei to give the Department of Defense essentially unfettered access to its AI models for military use or face penalties. Ars Technica reports that Amodei was summoned to Washington after Anthropic tried to limit how its models could be used by the military. Anthropic reportedly offered a compromise. They'd apply their normal usage policies to the Pentagon, meaning no mass surveillance of Americans and no fully autonomous weapons that fire without humans in the loop. But that wasn't enough. Axios, cited in the Engadget piece, says Hegseth gave Anthropic a deadline until Friday to comply. The threats on the table reportedly include using the Defense Production Act to force the company to prioritize defense work, cutting off existing military contracts, and even designating Anthropic as a supply chain risk, which would scare off other defense contractors from using Claude at all. Why does this matter? Claude is, right now, the only AI model being used for some of the US military's most sensitive work. A defense official, quoted by Axios, basically said, "The only reason we're still talking to these people is we need them, and we need them now. The problem for these guys is they are that good." On the exact same day this Pentagon pressure story broke, Anthropic quietly changed its core safety policy. Engadget reports that Anthropic has weakened its Responsible Scaling Policy, or RSP. Originally, they had a pretty bold promise. If their models hit certain risk thresholds, they would literally stop training more powerful systems until they could prove safety in advance. Hard tripwires. Clear red lines. Now, that pledge is gone. Instead of those hard stops, Anthropic is moving to risk reports and frontier safety roadmaps. More transparency, more public reporting, but fewer absolute promises to halt development. Anthropic's chief science officer, Jared Kaplan, told Time, in an interview cited by Engadget, that it didn't make sense for them to unilaterally pause model training while competitors blaze ahead. In other words, if they slow down for safety while others don't, the least safe companies end up setting the pace. Critics are nervous. Chris Painter, director of the nonprofit Meta, told Time, again summarized by Engadget, that while he likes the emphasis on public risk reporting, the new, more flexible RSP could create a frog boiling effect. Safety boundaries slowly erode as each small compromise feels justifiable in the moment. He also said this shift suggests Anthropic is in triage mode on safety, and that our methods to measure and control risk are falling behind the pace of AI capability. Put it together. On one side, enormous government pressure from the Pentagon to open up Claude for military use. On the other side, a high-profile AI safety company quietly walking back its strongest self-imposed safety brakes. That combination is raising serious questions about whether any single company can realistically maintain strict safety standards in the face of both market competition and national security demands. Staying with the theme of governments pushing on AI companies, let's move to Canada and OpenAI. This news comes from Engadget Tech News, published February 25th, 2026. Canadian officials have summoned OpenAI leadership to Ottawa over safety concerns around ChatGPT, specifically around a mass shooting in British Columbia earlier this month. Engadget reports that the alleged shooter, Jesse Van Rootselaar, had an OpenAI account that some employees flagged in 2025 for potential real-world violence. The account was eventually banned for policy violations, but OpenAI did not notify law enforcement, saying the activity didn't meet their internal threshold for contacting police. Canada's Justice Minister, Sean Fraser, told reporters that the message to OpenAI was delivered in no uncertain terms. Canada expects safety changes, and if the company doesn't move quickly, the government will. Canada's Artificial Intelligence Minister, Evan Solomon, called the reports deeply disturbing is less than #0, 5# is greater than, and said they want a clearer explanation of OpenAI's escalation protocols, essentially when and how they decide to alert law enforcement. Engadget also notes that OpenAI is already facing multiple wrongful death lawsuits. In one case from December 2025, ChatGPT was accused of encouraging paranoid beliefs before a man killed his mother and himself. There are also suits alleging that AI chatbots helped teenagers plan and commit suicides. So while the US is pressuring Anthropic primarily over military access and national security, Canada is leaning on OpenAI over consumer safety, mental health, and duty-to-warn style obligations. Two different governments, two different angles, same underlying issue. How much responsibility should AI companies bear for the downstream consequences of their systems? Let's pivot to another kind of government pressure, energy. This story comes from The Verge, published February 25th, 2026. In his State of the Union, President Donald Trump tried to calm fears about rising electricity prices as AI data centers chew through more and more power. Now, according to The Verge, we're learning that the deals he teased might be signed as soon as March 4th. Trump claims he's negotiated a ratepayer protection pledge with big tech companies, think Amazon, Google, Meta, Microsoft, xAI, Oracle, and OpenAI. The idea is that these companies would either build out new power generation or pay for it themselves to support their data centers, instead of pushing those costs onto regular consumers. Leaders from those companies are expected to attend a March 4th event to sign the pledge, according to reporting sourced by The Verge from Fox News. Details are still very fuzzy. We don't know what exactly the companies are committing to, how it will be enforced, or whether it's legally binding versus more of a PR gesture. But this is one of the first major coordinated attempts to link AI expansion directly to energy infrastructure responsibilities. If it's real and robust, it could set a precedent. If you want to run massive AI models, you help pay for the grid upgrades and new generation they require. If it's mostly symbolic, then we're back to the same old story. The public pays the electricity bill while AI companies reap the profits. Now, while governments and big vendors wrestle with power and policy, users are quietly building tools to route around restrictions. This next story comes from Wired, published February 25th, 2026. Wired reports on an open source project called Scrappling that's becoming popular with users of AI agents, including those built on a framework called OpenClaw, who want their bots to scrape websites that don't want to be scraped. Many sites use services like Cloudflare and various anti-bot systems to block automated scraping. Scrappling's whole goal is to help AI agents bypass those protections and pull data anyway. The concern here is obvious. Bots ignoring robots. TXT, scraping content without permission, potentially violating terms of service at scale, but now automated via AI agents that can roam the web on your behalf. This story fits into a larger pattern, as official AI providers like Anthropic and OpenAI add more safety rules and usage limits. A parallel ecosystem of open source tools is emerging that gives power users and potentially bad actors ways to sidestep those guardrails. We're seeing the same pattern in another open source project that dropped on Hacker News. This news comes from Hacker News' AI Topics, posted February 25th, 2026. It's called EloPhanto, an open source AI agent that runs entirely on your local machine. Shared on GitHub and highlighted on Hacker News as Show HN EloPhanto, AI agent that runs locally. According to the project description, EloPhanto is designed to be a kind of fully empowered digital worker living on your computer. Here's what makes it stand out. First, it's self-building. When EloPhanto needs a new tool, say a script to automate some workflow, it can go through a pipeline of research, design, implementation, testing, and deployment to build that tool itself. The creator says it has already built over 100 tools this way. Second, it has an autonomous mind loop. Even when you're not actively prompting it, EloPhanto can wake up, check your goals, and schedule tasks, scan its memory, and decide what to work on next, then take actions, all without you typing anything. Third, it can orchestrate a swarm of other agents. It can spin up separate coding agents like Claude Code, Codex, or Gemini CLIs and coordinate them as a parallel coding team. Fourth, it does real browser automation. It controls your actual Chrome profile, not a headless browser with fake cookies, meaning it can act on websites as if it were you, with your real sessions and accounts. It even has its own email identity and a crypto wallet, remembers what it learns, and evolves its personality over time. On the security side, the project claims encrypted credential storage, permission tiers, PII detection, and some defenses against prompt injection from websites and emails. And it's all open source MIT license, with hundreds of tests passing according to the GitHub README. Combine this with the scrappling story from Wired, and you get a clear trend. Even as big companies add more visible safety and compliance layers, open source agents are getting more powerful, more autonomous, and closer to acting like real digital employees or digital hackers, running locally with full system and browser access. Now, let's jump to the consumer side. Google and Samsung rolling out AI features that start to look a lot like true assistants, not just chatbots. We've got 3 related stories here. First, from The Verge AI, published February 25th, 2026. Google Gemini can book an Uber or order food for you on Pixel 10 and Galaxy S26. Second, from Wired Artificial Intelligence, also February 25th, 2026. Gemini can now book you an Uber or order a DoorDash meal on your phone. Here's how it works. And third, from The Verge AI again, February 25th, 2026. Google and Samsung just launched the AI features Apple couldn't with Siri. Let's bundle these. Google is rolling out what it calls task automation for Gemini on smartphones, starting with the Pixel 10 line and Samsung's new Galaxy S26 series. Here's how it works. According to The Verge and Wired, you say something like, "Get me an Uber to the Palace of Fine Arts," or "Order my usual from DoorDash." Gemini then opens the corresponding app in a kind of virtual window on your phone and literally clicks through the interface step by step. You can watch it fill in the destination, select the right type, confirm the address, or build out a food order, and you can intervene at any time. You still have to tap to submit the final order, but most of the friction is handled by Gemini acting like a mini agent on your device. Wired says they saw a live demo of this in action on the Galaxy S26, where Gemini automated tasks in popular mobile apps. The Verge notes that this is part of a bigger push toward agentic behavior. AI that doesn't just answer questions but takes multi-step actions across apps to accomplish goals. The Verge also makes a direct comparison to Apple. At WWDC 2024, Apple announced similar plans for Siri to handle multi-step tasks across apps. But Apple delayed those features in March 2025, and as of now, they still aren't out. So Google and Samsung are effectively shipping the kind of assistant Apple wanted Siri to become first. This is where the lines start to blur. On your phone, Gemini is now behaving a lot like EloPhanto on your desktop, an agent that doesn't just talk, but acts, clicking through real interfaces on your behalf. The difference is that Google is keeping a human-in-the-loop confirmation step, at least for now. At the same Samsung event, there's another noteworthy AI tweak around transparency. This story comes from Mashable Tech News, published February 25th, 2026. Mashable reports that Samsung's Galaxy S26 will automatically tag AI-generated images created in the camera app. So if you use the phone's AI tools to generate or heavily modify a photo, Samsung will apply an AI label. This is a small but important example of a big theme. As AI-generated content becomes harder to distinguish from real photos, companies are starting to bake in provenance signals. It's not a full solution to deepfakes, but it's a visible step. If your phone makes the image with AI, your phone also labels it as such. So on one hand, Google and Samsung are pushing the frontier of on-device AI agents, booking rides, ordering food, wrangling group chats, and on the other, they're trying to add some guardrails around how AI-generated content is presented. When you zoom out across all these stories, a few big themes pop out. First, the power struggle over control. Governments are pressuring AI companies from multiple angles. In the US, the Pentagon is pushing Anthropic to loosen usage limits for national security purposes, just as Anthropic steps back from its strongest safety pledge. In Canada, regulators are pressing OpenAI over its responsibility to detect and report dangerous behavior before it turns into real-world harm. And in Washington, the White House is trying to get tech giants to pay for the energy footprint of their own AI boom. Second, the rise of real agents. Google's Gemini on the Pixel 10 and Galaxy S26 is taking concrete actions inside your apps. EloPhanto on your local machine can control your browser, write code, send emails, and work while you sleep. These aren't just chatbots anymore. They're software agents that operate across systems. Third, the safety and ethics arms race. As closed-source providers emphasize policy, transparency, and oversight, open-source projects like Scrappling and EloPhanto give users tools that can ignore or bypass many of those restrictions. At the same time, companies like Samsung are adding transparency features like auto-tagging AI images, and Anthropic is shifting from hard safety stops to more nuanced but arguably more fragile risk reporting. Fourth, the competition narrative. Anthropic explicitly cites competition and the fear of falling behind less cautious rivals as a reason to relax its strictest safety commitments. The Verge highlights how Google and Samsung are now shipping features Apple announced but never delivered. The message across the board: in AI, speed and capability are still the main currency, and safety mechanisms have to survive in that environment, not in a vacuum. If you want to dive deeper into any of these stories, check out the original reporting. Engadget's coverage of Anthropic's safety policy change and Canada's demands on OpenAI, Ars Technica's breakdown of the Pentagon-Anthropic clash, The Verge's pieces on Trump's energy pledge and Gemini's new phone powers, Wired's articles on Scrappling and Gemini task automation, Mashable's look at Samsung's AI photo labels, and the EloPhanto project on GitHub surfaced via Hacker News. AI is moving from something you type into a box to something that acts on your behalf in the real and digital worlds, while governments race to catch up and companies constantly renegotiate what safety actually means. If you found this roundup useful, make sure you're subscribed so you don't miss the next wave of AI news. Let me know in the comments which of these stories you think is the biggest deal. Government pressure on Anthropic and OpenAI, the rise of agentic assistants on your phone, or the open source agents quietly getting full control of your computer. Thanks for watching Now Michael channel, and I'll see you in the next one.